welcome to another amazing day at fmtraining.tv, where we talk about the fantastic and wonderful FileMaker platform. My name is Margaret. I'll be your broadcast engineer for today. Hello! And today we have the wonderful Christian Schmitz, as well as Calvin Moseman, who is here also as one of our senior engineers, who's here to help the discussion as it goes along. Christian is a fantastic FileMaker developer who has made the wonderful Monkey Bread plugin. It is one of the best plugins for the FileMaker platform with over 6,000 functions that do a variety of really wonderful and helpful things. If you can't solve an issue using base FileMaker, you can probably solve it using FileMaker and the Monkey Bread plugin. So I highly recommend it. It's fantastic. We are here to talk about SQL connectivity today, specifically with the MBS plugin, so that'll be quite interesting. Real quick, let's cover the live training schedule. Okay, so today we have SQL with the FileMaker MBS plugin today with Christian. Monday is going to be Virtual Lists and FileMaker with Jonathan Ray. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday is going to be the continuation of Nick's UI UX beginners and intermediate series. This time specifically about the iPad UI UX design, which should be interesting. Friday will be an open FileMaker server Q&A with Jacob Taylor. So if you've got server questions, that would be the time to attend. With that being said, if you'd like to support the channel, I highly recommend you getting the FM Training annual subscription bundle. It's 100+ hours of high-energy video content where Richard, Nick, Calvin himself, Jonathan Ray, and a couple of other of our engineers basically discuss how you can become a FileMaker developer from beginning to intermediate. So if you've already bought it, we greatly appreciate it. If you would like to get Monkey Bread, go to monkeybreadsoftware.com. It is fantastic. There is a free version with a certain amount of functions, but it's really quite worth the money. I highly recommend you get it. I think we're probably good. Christian, what are we doing today?
So we are talking about the MBS FileMaker plugin, of course. And in that, we have functions for SQL connections. So you can connect to foreign databases like Microsoft SQL Server, MySQL, MariaDB, and others. And for example, we will use PostgreSQL. And from time to time, you may have clients which use other software than FileMaker and maybe a web shop. And they may use a SQL database, and you have the need to move data from one database to your FileMaker database or the other way. So you can connect with the MBS plugin, and that's an alternative to the built-in ESS in FileMaker. So if you don't like to set up an ESS table, an external table in FileMaker, you can use our plugin to connect in a script, move some records, and disconnect as you need. So you see the website.
Yep.
So this is our website, and then you can go on the documentation part and then to the SQL functions. And we have SQL functions for within FileMaker. That was last week's topic. And we have this functions for other databases. So if you have one of those databases, you can use our plugin to connect to them. You can even connect again to FileMaker Server or a Pro running ODBC. You can also just connect to a Microsoft Access solution on Windows if you like, so you can move data. And for MongoDB, you can use our new MongoDB functions. I wrote a few months ago a little blog post on how to do this. So we are basically just doing this today, but live and with audio. Do we have any questions so far?
I don't see, why use the MBS plugin instead of the ESS?
Yeah, well, let's say you want to connect to Microsoft SQL Server. You may need to install some ODBC drivers and set up a table relation. And so there's some setup involved. And then FileMaker basically does all the SQL for you by when you do FileMaker operations. And the difference with the plugin is that our plugin can connect with a native driver, but without installation. So you, depending on which target you have, we have a built-in driver, or you bring the DLL with your solution. So you can have the DLLs in a container and export them if you need them. And then you can connect in a script. This makes it very flexible to say which database to connect to. what table to use, what are the names of the fields, because everything can be changed up to the last minute before the SQL command runs. So a lot of people like it as an alternative because they like to do more than what's possible in FileMaker directly.
Okay, hopefully that answers your question, David Angel. Otherwise, there are no questions, so you're free to keep going.
Okay, so I got Postgres here. So for Postgres on Mac, you can download a Postgres app, and I think also you can do the same for Windows, which is an app you install, and it includes a server for PostgreSQL. So this is just an app, and I can start it when I like to have a server, and here it tells me there's a configuration file. I can name it, I can give it a port number, and I can start it, and now I have a local running PostgreSQL server on my machine. There's a table here, and I can connect via terminal here to this database. And this is test. Let's see, select star from test. What does it say? Test does not exist. I thought I had a test database. Okay. No.
I saw in your demo or in your Postgres app, there was a template one.
Yeah, there's another. There are a couple of example databases available, I think.
We have a really fast question. Is an ODBC driver needed?
For this, no. I wonder what records I did do. So let me quickly Google for query PostgreSQL schema. So here select tables. Okay. So we find all the tables. So I have a persons table and a persons table. So you see table names are case sensitive here. So I got both persons and persons. And I should actually be able to use that. So again, select star from persons. Yeah. So we have a few test persons here from some earlier test. But we also may have what's in the other persons table. Oh, same. Okay, so I have, it looks like I have two persons tables, and either it's an alias or not. Looks like it's the same content. Okay. Let's go, and in the plugin we have examples, and we have one here for PostgreSQL, and I will just take this database and show you how it works. So we need information to connect to a database, and we have a username, a password, and for my local database here, the user is my name, CS, and the password is empty, and it only accepts connections from localhost anyway, so this is perfectly secure. No, it's not secure, but we can connect to localhost here to the database, which is also named CS. I have the path to the native library for PostgreSQL. So this lib pq dilib, this is the native driver file we use to connect to the database. If you need a driver for one of the databases, you can find it on our website. I got a collection of files here, libraries. So we have here kubesql, we have FreeTDS for using Microsoft SQL Server on Mac. We have here MariaDB libraries, MySQL libraries, PostgreSQL libraries, and another FreeTDS there. Okay, so I got a few of them here. Others may be available on their website. And you tell the plugin where the library is, so the plugin can load the library and then make the connection. Let's see how we do that. So we use the SQL command to create a new connection in the script. So you trigger the script will do whatever it should do, and starts with a fresh connection. You can also have a connection open over several scripts. You can just open it somewhere, put it in a global variable, and later use it. But in this example, we just create a new connection for every operation. We tell the plugin where to find the library. This is one of the things. It's disabled. Let's go to the preferences. We have this nice feature to have links in our. So I can directly jump to the documentation from my calculation. And here we have examples. So if you use Oracle to connect, you would point to the OCDLL from Oracle, from your installation of the local drivers, or you just have this DLL somewhere. The same goes for other connections. So here we have MySQL, where you usually have a libmysql DLL somewhere. DB2, Informix, Firebird, SQL base. Well, you name the database, and every database basically has some kind of local driver. And for SQLite, you can also use a built-in driver for in our plugin. You can also set other options, like, for example, for cubes. So what do we have here for MySQL? Let's say MySQL, you can say, I want to have SSL connection, SSL encryption on the connection, and I want to use a certain cipher for the encryption, and I want to use a certain key file here for the certificate verification. So back to the script. So you start a new connection, you set options, and then you tell the plugin to connect to the database. The connection string should include everything you need to connect, usually the name of the server, the port number, the username. Username, password are usually passed separately, so they don't end up in the connection string. And if the connection works, we stop here and freeze the connection and error out and show a message. Oh, we had a question?
We did. Can the DLL be stored in the database or at a URL, or does it have to be?
Yeah, a lot of customers store the DLLs in the database and export them to a temporary folder when they need it. This is also used for our data PDF stuff and for the Excel file library, so the XL library. So whatever DLL or dilib you need, you can also just include in your in a container, but some drivers are more than one file. Like the newer MySQL drivers with encryption, they require 3 files, because one is for the encryption, one is for the SSL, and one is for the database connection. They all go in one folder, and then you can connect it. And all this is to avoid having to install ODBC drivers. You can use ODBC, so you can tell the plugin to use ODBC. You tell it the name of the data source, and the plugin will connect to the data source. But we can do things like MySQL connection without ODBC. Once we have a connection, somehow, you can start a new command. So you pass in the command, the SQL command, to the new command function, which then creates a command object. Your command is, of course, parsed already, and if there are parameters, like for an insert command, they will be recognized. And then you can set options on this command, maybe fill in some parameters, and finally execute it. In this case, it's just a SQL command to select here, select star from persons, and we just execute it. If that is successful, we can show an error. Otherwise, in this example, We query the field count, so we see how many fields we have in the result set. We can query for every field the name. We can also query the data type. We can query the field as text in this case. We can also say, give me, if the field type is a number, we can ask it for the number. If it's a date, we can ask for date, and so on. And to get a record, we have to make a loop usually, because we want to process all the records. So we call fetch next to get the next record until we have no more. And in that case, we don't get here 1 back. So fetch next queries a record, gives us either a 0 or 1, and we exit the loop if it's not a 1. And this is usually better than checking for 0, because not 1 would exit the loop if this would return any error message like dropped connection. So when we get all the fields as text and the field names, we can put them into a string, and the string later is shown in a field so we can see it. Finally, we do our cleanup here with freeing the command and the connection. If you don't free them, so if you don't release the objects, you will leak memory, and eventually FileMaker will run out of memory. Well, on a 64-bit system, unlikely. So when I run it, I should clear it, so you see it's new data coming in. I get all the records here with field name and field value as text. If I go to this field functions in the documentation, you can see, so we can query the field name. We can also query the data type, and then we have different get functions here. Get field as Boolean, date, datetime, float, number, JPEG, PDF, PNG. So I made all these individual values, functions, and then later I decided, oh, maybe just a get field value is better. Get field value would give you the value which is in the type matching for FileMaker. So you would either get a text, a date, a time, a timestamp, a number, or blobs. In this case, are returned as text, hex encoded. But we also got on the newer functions here, get field as container. So if the field contains container data or binary data, which could be a file like a PDF document, you can use this function to ask the plugin for the container value. Like in this example, we run a query to not just get the file data, but also the file name. And if we have both, we can then tell the plugin to give us a field as a container, passing in the file name. So FileMaker can see what file type it is from the file name and give us back the container in the right format, like with an image, so it can preview the image if you show it in a container.
There is kind of like half a question. Do you need to install MBS on each machine and the server in order for this to all work?
You install the plugin where it is used.
Got it.
So if you use a script only on a server, you only need the server installation. If you install it to run the script in FileMaker Pro, you need it on the FileMaker Pro machine where it runs. So always install the plugin where you need it. So if you like, you can, of course, have a button on your layout to do the import. And if you click it on FileMaker Go, where you have no plugin, you could then say, okay, then make a perform script on server and do the import on the server.
Cool. Hope that answers everyone's questions.
So,
people in YouTube and Twitch, if you have questions, please ask them. I'll forward them on to Christian.
let me check this other example here. This doesn't insert. Usually the plugin runs with auto commit, and oh, there's a lot of error handling here. So this is a script with a lot of error handling, because after every operation we check for an error. But it may be a good example because you should really do error checking. So we have an insert statement here. Insert into name of the table, persons, the field list, first name, last name, city. And for the values, we use placeholders here, double colon first name. So I name the placeholder just like the field. And by using placeholders with names, I avoid trouble with having indexes here. So if I add another field and it would move other fields, so the indexes would change, and I don't like that. So I use names for the placeholders. Then I can fill in the parameter with a text, a number, a date, a time, a value. We have several functions for this. So we just put in text here. Then we run the execute command. We create a second record. So after you execute this SQL statement with these 3 values, you can run another time with another 3 values. And so you can reuse the same insert statement as often as you like. And this saves you a little bit CPU time because the insert statement doesn't need to be parsed twice. In this example, we use transactions. So we turn off the auto committing and then commit on the end manually when everything works. And the good thing here is when I run the script, I can like stop the script here, terminate the connection, and or call rollback, and you wouldn't see the record. So I could insert one record successfully, then stop the script here, and you won't see the record. Yeah, we should maybe try this. Let's first maybe clear the table. So delete star from persons, semicolon. Now, so it deleted the records. Yeah, zeros. So let me just run one time the script here and run the query. And you see we have 2 records, 46 and 47. So now we can debug the script and say we step a little bit. So you see I run the execute, and now accidents happen, and I jump right to the end. Let's say I jump here. So I click the line, I say here FileMaker continue there. Script continues, we come to the rollback, and connection is freed. And if I run my query again, where is it? You see we still have 2 records. Because we did a transaction here with auto commit off, and we came to the rollback statement, or the connection would just die with an open transaction, and it's rolled back, so the new records are not saved. So this is great if you like to do transactions. And this can help a lot because, for example, if you have to insert 1,000 records, you could make a loop and then just commit maybe every 100 records. So after you created 100 records in memory, they would be pushed to the server all in one step. And this would be saving a lot of time for packets going round trip to the server and back. Instead of having each record create a round trip to the server and back, you would only do it for every time you commit. And this is usually faster. So, but you see this this style of programming is quite well, a lot of if statements. With this error checking, I can show you a different way. And that is this script. So this looks quite similar, but the error handling is gone. So the difference here is the plugin collects all the problems that happen. So we tell the plugin to clear the error list. Then you run various commands, which may return error. And then we can ask the plugin if we had any errors on the go. So if any of this command would return error. We would come here to head errors, and it would not be 0, would be 1, 2, 3, whatever the number of errors is. And in that case, we would do the rollback, and so we don't have any trouble.
If there are errors, is it possible to see what those errors are?
Yeah, of course. We got this. What is it? So let me use my jumping feature here. So we have an error log function, which gives you the JSON for the error log.
Okay,
so
cool.
Let's just cause an error. Let's say first name 2. And let's say here 2. This is an invalid function name. So let's run the script. And so watch, and here plus MBS error log. Where's my error log? Did we clean it? Hey, wait, where's my error log? Let's show it here. Run it again. Yeah, there's my error log. So I may have to check that the error log is already gone. Well, so the plugin keeps error logs per script. So on a server environment, if you have several scripts running parallel, you would have an error log for each script.
Okay, cool.
And here you see we have an invalid name for the parameters. And the plugin also lists you all the parameters to the function call. It lists you the file name, script name, timestamp. So you can have such error checks with the plugin in your scripts. And if there was an error, you can just log this maybe to an error table, and later as developer check if you get new errors reported. Because it's always important to know if your customer runs into an error that you get reported those errors. And then you can maybe group them by script names and see which scripts make the most errors. Okay, so here we see unknown function name. So yeah, we see what's happening. We also like to use the trace function. Oops, what's the, oh, I closed the database. Oh yeah, sorry. Closed the wrong window. Let's just make a trace, because people often do this database operations, call a lot of SQL functions and don't know what's happening. So we have here a trace call. This should only be there if you are debugging, or if you like to have a log, because otherwise you get a slowdown, because logging takes time. So I run the console app here on my Mac. On Windows, it would be the debug view app from Microsoft to live see all the messages. So I can know, let's see, run this in a debugger, maybe. And here in the window from the console, you see what's happening. So you see all the MBS calls are logged live. And oh, I have debug logging on. So I see a lot of more messages than you usually see. If you don't have, if this happens on a client computer, you may want to redirect this to a folder. So users, desktop, the desktop, CS, let's say trace, txt. So run the script again, get our errors. We get a lot of things logged. And where's my log file?
I don't think you specified which user in the. I don't know if you need to on your.
Didn't. Oh, I'm the idiot. Yeah. So user CS desktop, run again. Right, and there's my log file. So you can see all the MBS calls logged
Very
here.
cool.
And there you can look for the errors, like here you see. So because MBS plugin always puts an MBS in front, that's something we can, oops, no crap, yeah. We can search for, so we find them all. Here we also find that the plugin returned text. Yeah, there is a mess with the. So the line endings here is Unix line endings, but the text returned by this function uses Mac line endings. So we have here shown us this question marks. I can fix that. So the plugin shows you the text it returned from the function. And because the text is too long, it will eventually be truncated, because we don't want to write megabytes long text into the log file. Okay. Do we have any new questions?
We do, just got one from YouTube. Is there an example script that works with stored procedures MS SQL?
Yeah, we have that somewhere. Let me find something. Let's see, we go to maybe SQL execute and look at the examples. Data table, run something. Here, what is it? Run stored procedure, set up role for ODBC connect to Microsoft SQL Server. So this is so the command. So if you make a new command and the command is the name of the stored procedure, the plugin will then query the list of function, so parameter names for the stored procedure. And you can get the list here with this function to get you the list of the parameters. Then you can fill in the parameters. And in this case, they all have an @ as a prefix to the name. So you can fill in the parameters, and then you can call SQL execute. And if it returns you an output parameter, you can then, after you run it, you can query it here with get parameter as text and the name of the return parameters. So we can call stored procedures, which also is a nice way to have several statements merged together to one call for your FileMaker client. So can be very useful.
Okay, Etienne, I hope that answers your question. Does every script need to open the connection at the beginning?
No, it doesn't need to. This is just something we do for the examples here. But basically, you can skip that. Let's see. What question? Does one of the example does it differently? Okay, here in this example, we have it always in the same script. So any script calls the open database one. But you can also just store the connection in a database. Or maybe just do that here. So let's say we split the script into different ones, like open connection. And say here, $database connection is $connection. Yeah, keep that name. Then my run query can use this $variable instead of creating a new connection. Oops. Remove this. So we use the existing, and we should not close it here. Oh, but free the command, of course. Not close the connection. So next thing would be close connection. Close connection and set variable empty. So let's try it. We run the script, and we have now an open connection. And this should show here, yeah. $$ database connection is already our 12th for this example here. So I can run the query over that connection. Yeah, I can clear it and I can run it again. So I can, you see, I'm running it over the same connection again and again. And when I'm done, I can run the close method. So it may be more efficient if you do a lot of database operations to keep a connection open. And every connection has its own transaction state. So if you want to have a separate new transaction, you need a new connection. The close is actually optional, because if you quit FileMaker, it's closed anyway. But the close is, of course, nice to tell the server that you're done with the connection, and the server can free the server-side memory for that without waiting maybe 15 minutes for timeout if you don't tell it to close. So yeah, you can keep the connection open or while you use the plugin. So let's see, what do we have on other commands we could show you? So you can, we used fetch next, but there's also a fetch last to go backwards, and a fetch first to go to the first record, and no, last is the last record. Prior is the one before the current one, and fetch post is to go to a record in a certain number of records. But to use a record like this, you need to have a scrollable record. So for efficiency, a lot of databases like to have this forward-only set option, a command option. So a lot of databases like to have records, record sets which are only forward movable. And so you can ask the plugin to make a scrollable record set. And then you can move forward, backwards as you like. We can also prefetch rows. So if you walk over a lot of records, it may be good to load 100 records each time from the server. So you await waiting times for your network. Because fetching 100 records at a time is quicker than fetching each record on its own. We have also a couple of more options. Well, there are a lot of database-related options. So if you go over, if you make a query for a table, you don't know the field names, you can, of course, also check if a field exists, besides getting the list of field names. That was here. Get field name and name list. Name list gives you the names of all the fields in the current record set. Not the table, but the record set. But if you make a select star, you get, of course, all the fields. So the same. So you can also query all the field values as JSON. Sometimes can be useful. And we can also set parameters with JSON and get the parameters as JSON. We also have here a function to get the records as JSON. So let's just use that one. So click on it. There's not many options, but we can just take our script here, make a duplicate, and then instead of here collecting all the records ourselves, we can just say, give me the result as JSON. Command. Run this, and you see we get a JSON here with our records. We made this JSON functions for people working with, well, JSON data with web service, for example. Like if you get the records from FileMaker with a new data API script step, you would get a big JSON block. Then you could walk over the records you got from FileMaker and fill parameters for creating new records on the server with that JSON. And for that, you would use set parameter with JSON, so you can set all the parameters in one go with passing in a JSON object. And because your placeholders and the field names don't need to match, you can use the same placeholders as in the JSON, so it matches, and the field names on the server don't need to match. And we often have that little problem that the field names don't match on both sides. So let's see, where was I? So then we have things like insert records or insert and update records. So let's say you made a select statement in your database, in your Postgres database. You can transfer the currently selected records into a FileMaker database by just telling our plugin what's the name of the FileMaker database, what's the name of the table, and what's the names of the fields in FileMaker. They don't need to be the same. Let's see, we have here a simple select statement where we put all the field names we'd like to get from the test table, and then we insert them into our local FileMaker database and pass here the field names as they are in the FileMaker database. They can be the same, but they don't need to be the same. The data types should match, but if the data types don't match, you can use in the select statement a cast operator to change the data type of your field here. And I'll probably have that somewhere in another documentation function. And you can, of course, also insert constant values, and we may find that somewhere else in one of the examples. So insert or update does the same, but it can also update existing records if you tell the plugin where what are the primary keys, so we can identify records which have the same values. Okay, so this is to transfer, make a select in SQL, and then move it to FileMaker. We also have the other way around. And that would be to use our FM SQL functions here to execute and then insert records to SQL database, where you tell the plugin the records you selected at FileMaker, you tell it which connection to the other database exists, and then tell it what's the name of the table there, what are the name of the fields, and then you can also do just chunks of the result set. And let's say, we have a little example here. Again, we make a select in FileMaker, and then move it over the connection to the table in the foreign database. So I fear this SQL commands may be a little advanced topic for a lot of people.
Probably, but there's definitely a couple who are getting things out of it, I think.
Yeah. So you should.
It's also helpful just knowing what the capabilities are that we
just remember what's possible.
Mm-hmm.
So you can insert records. You can create parameter code. Rollback is good for if you use transactions. Rows affected tells you how many rows are affected by the last operation, like an update statement or delete statement. We have here a few SQLite functions. So command options. So parameters, you can fill in parameters like a container, number, datetime. If you pass no, I think this was changed, not all numbers, isn't it? No, not this one. Okay. So we also have a param value. So pass a number as a number, pass a text as a text. You can also set things to null. So if you need to put a null value somewhere, you can also do that with the plugin. You can also set it to the default value. Sometimes parameters like for stored procedure have default values, so you can just keep the default there, but the default is also the default value. So when you say nothing, it's that anyway. And here set param values is a convenience function where you can just pass all the parameters in one call. So you would just make the statement once, and then you make a loop calling set parameters, execute, move to the next record in FileMaker, and then again set parameters so you could quickly move a lot of records. So is alive, is connected, can tell you if you are connected, or alive tells you if the server recently applied to one of our pings, so it's still there. Yeah. And is results, that tells you if you have a result from a previous function call and a previous well, select statement. Something you don't have in FileMaker is isolation levels. So we can decide whether we want to see uncommitted data from other clients, or we just want to read committed data. So different levels of isolation. I think those are the main things here. Whether you want to read only committed data, or you want to see data which is already on the server but not yet committed.
That's interesting. I didn't even know you could do that. That was an option.
Yeah, usually nobody uses that. I mean, people, either it's committed or not. I don't care for what's not committed.
But the option's there. So.
Yeah, auto commit is on by default. So you can just use the database, you can run commands, and you never have to call commit. And if auto commit is activated, a call to commit does nothing because it's already committed, but you can turn it off if you need to. You can ask for the server version string so you know which database server you have. We can just try that. Let me copy this. Let's say I take here the connect script and say show dialog and version. Run it, and yeah, this is Postgres 14.2, probably a little bit outdated, and yeah, 64-bit.
No, it's really awesome seeing what you can do with connecting to an SQL source and what these options are.
I'm just looking if I missed something.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite the list. David Angel is typing. I'm gonna let him.
Do you happen to know how many people who use MBS take advantage of the SQL functions?
Oh, probably hundreds. It's difficult to say for me because people only ask questions if something doesn't work. And the hardest thing usually is the connection string, like here on the SQL Connect. So for every different database, you have to know what you pass there. So Oracle, it's quite easy in this case, but here Microsoft SQL Server, you need to know the name of the instance. So it's a server with name or IP, and then there's an instance name, and then there's a database name. And or here the DB2, where we have our connection string, which contains all the different values. Like, so there's again IP and maybe a port number, database name. And in this case, we include username and password in the connection string. But you can also put it separately here, and here, schema name. There's something for Informix. So the connection string is usually the difficult thing because people not always know what to pass here. So here's for Microsoft Access, where you actually have to specify the driver name very exactly as the driver names itself and the dialogues for ODBC. So this is using an ODBC driver without defining a data source. You just tell the plugin what driver to use, where's the database file, and then the plugin will, in this case, load the ODBC driver, and the ODBC driver found in the registry, basically with that name on Windows. Then what we have here, SQLite database, that's simply, there's just a file name. Visual Fox Pro, not sure if anyone still use that. You can connect to MySQL databases with a path. So if it's a local database, It can go with an IPC socket, so you don't need to pass through the firewall. So this is no TCP IP connection. This is directly inter-process communication. So here we have our Firebird example where we load the DLL and then we just pass in the name of the database. Here is a connection string for PostgreSQL, which is a little bit longer. So we have the IP, localhost, in this case, with a comma separated, we pass in the port number. If it's a default port, we don't need that, but in this case, we still do it because I want to show you how to pass in the port number. Then we can pass parameters like here, DB name, a connection timeout, also very useful, so you don't wait forever. SSL mode required is also good, so people can't read your data if they read your network connection. Like on a Wi-Fi in a coffee, no. So if you're sitting in a restaurant and you use the local Wi-Fi, people can't just read your data if they hack into the local network. Then here we use, here's an example for using the free TDS library on a Mac to connect to Microsoft SQL Server. So we load this library. So we tell the plugin to use this library as the driver here. Load this driver, connect to this IP, username, password, database name, protocol version, port number. So this is for connecting to Microsoft SQL Server from a Mac. If you have just a data source name defined in ODBC, you can just pass in the name here and the plugin will just use it. Here's another example for MySQL, just IP at domain name or IP at server config at the database name. And this IP can, of course, always be IPv6 if you need. So here we have connection to driver is again, this is again ODBC. So what is it? And the plugin can do SSH tunneling. So you can do an SSH connection with our plugin and provide a tunnel. And when the tunnel is running, you can connect to the MySQL server through the tunnel. You don't need to have the user create a tunnel with a terminal, maybe, but you can do that in a script. And you can, of course, check for errors yourself and report to the user. And then you can connect through the tunnel, run the tunnel as long as you need the connection. And then finally, you can free the connection and terminate the tunnel. Yeah.
Okay. We got a quick question. Do you need to call the DLL file? Does the database provide those DLL?
This depends. So if you, for example, install the Oracle client software, you get a folder on your computer with all the DLLs for Oracle. And then you just tell the plugin where the OC DLL is. If you, for example, have the MySQL one, you could just put it in a container and then write it to a temp folder and load it at runtime. So the complexity depends on the database vendor. Like with Postgres, I just pointed into the library file in the PostgreSQL app. Let's just look into package content. So here in the folders, where is it here? 14. Yes, lib folder. Yeah. libpq. This is an alias to here. libpq 514. This is a dilib you need, and this dilib in this case may have dependencies. So let's just use OTool to show the dependencies. And this library needs libssl and libcrypto in the same folder or here at the path of the loader. So if you would copy this, you would also copy here the SSL library and the crypto one. Where is it? As usually, I'm halfway blind when I'm doing this. So we can just copy those. Let's copy them to the desktop. And now we go here and change our script. So let's first clear. Oh, where is it? There. It's cleared. So I changed the script to use the libraries on the desktop. Oh, I can just change the path here. So let's go here. libpq, copy as path name. Yeah. Put it in here, and now we load it from the desktop, and it loads.
Very cool. Very cool.
So I know customers which have all the libraries in containers. So when the solution starts, it will look if the file on disk is older than the one in the container. So they have a timestamp in the container, and they will write all the new files if needed. And so they have maybe the DynaPDF file, the libxl file, the libmysql file, and whatever they need.
Okay, we got one more quick question. Could this be used to connect to Microsoft Project Online?
Microsoft Project?
Microsoft Project Online.
I don't think that's a database. But well, you can surprise me. Project maybe does it have ODBC? So I don't know the answer for this. Oh, right. That's live. Direct from support. Oh, here's this MS Project ODBC driver. Wow. Oh, that's a third-party thing, isn't it? C data. Okay, the plugin may be able to load this ODBC driver and then connect to the Microsoft Project database. But I've never tried this.
Okay, there you go, Lynn. You might have to look into that a little bit more.
But our plugin should be able to connect to any ODBC data source.
So as long as it's got that source, you're good.
Sometimes people have problems on Windows because they need a 64-bit version, but got a 32-bit version on the library, and then it doesn't work. And the error message are not always helpful.
No, thank you for coming online. People said that was very cool. Like there are some comments on YouTube about how the session was super helpful, and that you are amazing, which is very true. So thank you very much for coming on and explaining this. And thank you, Calvin, also for hopping on as well. Appreciate the time. With that being said, please get MBS, people. It makes your life a bajillion times easier, and I cannot recommend it enough. Richard recommends it. Like anyone who uses it is like, oh my goodness, it makes so many things so much easier. So with that being said, if anyone has any more requests or things you'd like to see, or for example, if you've got something in MBS you'd like to see Christian pop on and explain, send us a message, please. We will try to schedule something.
Got a report of an individual up here who may be a FileMaker license. Well, it's potentially expired. Look at the back of that car right there. Looks like the FileMaker license has expired. Sir, I need you to step out of the vehicle. Sir, step out of the vehicle. Sir.